The stars looked peaceful from Captain Olivia Pearson's office window aboard Earth's orbital defense station. She sipped her coffee while reviewing crew reports, unaware that today would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. A soft beep from her desk computer broke the silence. "Captain, we've detected an unidentified vessel approaching Earth's orbit," said the calm voice of Lieutenant Jack Flores through the speaker. "It doesn't match any known Earth ship signatures." Olivia set down her cup. "I'll be right there." The command center buzzed with activity as officers tracked the approaching ship. On the main screen, a sleek vessel with glowing blue markings limped toward Earth, trailing debris and energy fluctuations. "It's damage," Olivia noted. "Any communication attempts?" "Yes, Captain," replied communications specialist Samantha Rivera. "They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. I think they're trying to find one we can understand." "Put it through." The screen flickered to show a thin, blue-skinned being with large, almond-shaped eyes. Its face showed signs of stress, even through the alien features. "This is Ambassador Zorax of the Celestial Alliance." The alien spoke in surprisingly good English. "We request immediate audience with Earth's leaders. The matter concerns the survival of both our peoples." Within hours, Olivia found herself in the United Earth Council chamber, where Ambassador Zorax addressed the gathered officials. President William Carter sat at the center, his expression grave. "For 3 centuries, the Celestial Alliance has fought the Vordath Empire," Zorax explained, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy. Vast regions glowed in different colors, showing territory controlled by each faction. The Vordath seek to dominate all sentient life. Until now, your solar system remained outside their notice. Zorax's long fingers adjusted the map, zooming to show Earth's position. "But our intelligence indicates they have learned of your planet. They will come, whether you join us or not." Admiral George Simmons, head of Earth's defense fleet, leaned forward. "Why should we believe this? Humanity has observed your war from afar for decades without either side approaching us." "Because the balance of power has shifted," Zorax replied. "The Vordath have developed new weapons technology. We are losing. When they finish with us, they will come for you. Alone, neither of us can stand against them." Murmurs filled the chamber as council members debated among themselves. Diplomatic Officer Kate Nelson stood. "Ambassador, what exactly are you asking of Earth? Join our alliance. Fight with us. Your species has unique approaches to warfare that our analysts believe could change the tide of this conflict." "Unique approaches?" President Carter asked. Zorax hesitated. "Your history shows that humans approach conflict differently than any species we've encountered. You fight to end wars, not simply to win battles. The concept is unusual in galactic society." The council chamber erupted in debate. Some argued for neutrality, others for preparation of Earth's defenses, and a few for joining the alliance immediately. Dr. Alan Wright, Earth's leading weapons scientist, was granted permission to speak. "Mr. President, council members, you all know my team has been developing defensive systems based on our observations of alien technology. What you don't know is how far we've progressed." He activated his tablet, and a projection appeared showing a ship design unlike anything in Earth's public fleet. The U.S. Defiant, armed with systems that could change the nature of space warfare. Admiral Simmons frowned. "Those systems are experimental at best, untested in actual combat." "But they work," Dr. Wright insisted. "And they exploit weaknesses we've observed in Vordath technology." President Carter silenced the room with a raised hand. "We need time to consider. Ambassador Zorax, we will provide you quarters while we deliberate." After the ambassador left, President Carter turned to Captain Pearson. "Olivia, I want your opinion as someone who studied both sides of this conflict. Can we stay neutral?" Olivia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "Sir, I've analyzed the Vordath expansion patterns for years. If what the ambassador says is true about their new weapons, they won't stop. They'll come for Earth eventually. The question isn't if we fight, but when, and whether we'll have allies when we do." The president nodded slowly, the burden of his position visible in the lines of his face. Prepare the Defiant for possible deployment. Let's see if humanity's unique approach to warfare is as special as our new friends believe. The council chamber was silent as Admiral Simmons displayed the intelligence reports. Holographic star maps showed the Vordath Empire's advance through Alliance territory. At their current pace, the Vordath will reach these key Alliance strongholds within 3 months, the Admiral said, pointing to several blinking points on the map. If those fall, Earth will be exposed within a year. President Carter studied the projection carefully. And you're certain of these projections? The ambassador provided access to their military intelligence. Our analysts confirm it matches what we've observed independently. Kate Nelson, who had been studying Alliance records, stepped forward. There's more, Mr. President. The Vordath don't just conquer. They strip planets of resources and often destroy indigenous populations. Captain Pearson watched the faces around the table grow more concerned. She had spent the night reviewing all available data on Vordath battle tactics. I've invited Dr. Wright to share more details about our capabilities, the president said, nodding to the scientist. Dr. Wright stood and activated a secure display. The Quantum Displacement System, or QDS, is unlike anything either side of this conflict possesses. The display showed a complex device at the heart of the U.S. Defiant. It creates localized distortions in spacetime, Dr. Wright explained. In simple terms, it disrupts enemy shielding and propulsion systems without damaging our own technology. Admiral Simmons crossed his arms. It's still theoretical. We've never tested it against actual alien technology. Not entirely true, Dr. Wright countered. We've tested it against recovered Vordath components. The results were promising. Lieutenant Jack Flores, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. The Alliance has been fighting conventionally for centuries. They use predictable formations and tactics. The Vordath know exactly what to expect. And we don't fight that way, Captain Pearson added. Human military history shows we adapt quickly. We use surprise and unconventional approaches. Kate Nelson nodded in agreement. The ambassador wasn't exaggerating. They see something in us they don't have. President Carter stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. For a moment, he seemed to be carrying the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. How many ships would we need to send? He finally asked. Admiral Simmons raised his eyebrows. Sir, are you considering intervention? I'm considering all options. Admiral. Captain Pearson stepped forward. Sir, based on my analysis, we wouldn't need a large fleet. The U.S. Defiant alone could make a significant difference if we used the right strategy. The room erupted in objections. One ship. Against an empire, someone shouted. It's not about numbers, Captain Pearson insisted. It's about the approach. The Defiant has stealth capabilities neither side has encountered before. We could target their command structure directly. President Carter raised his hand for silence. Dr. Wright, is the Defiant ready for deployment? Yes, sir. We can have it fully operational within 48 hours. The president took a deep breath. Captain Pearson, if we decide to proceed, I want you commanding the mission. Sir, I'm honored, but you've studied this conflict longer than anyone else in our fleet. You understand both sides and their tactics. He turned to address the entire council. Let me be clear. I don't make this decision lightly. But if we wait until the Vordath reach our doorstep, we'll face them alone. The room fell silent again as the weight of the decision settled over everyone. Later that evening, Ambassador Zorax was called back to the council chamber. President Carter stood as the ambassador entered. Ambassador, Earth has made its decision. We will join your alliance, but on our terms. Zorax tilted his head. Your terms. We will send one ship, the U.S. Defiant, with our best crew. They will have operational freedom to implement human tactics against the Vordath. The ambassador looked confused. Just one vessel. The Vordath fleet numbers in the hundreds. Captain Pearson stepped forward. Sometimes one well-placed stone is all you need to start an avalanche. Zorak studied her for a moment, then slowly nodded. The Alliance accepts your terms, though I must warn my superiors will be skeptical. They won't be for long, Lieutenant Flores said quietly. President Carter extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. Captain Pearson, assemble your crew. The U.S. Defiant launches in 2 days. The U.S. Defiant emerged from faster-than-light travel with a slight shudder. Through the main viewport, Captain Olivia Pearson saw the Alliance outpost for the first time. Outpost Sigma was massive. A sprawling space station surrounded by hundreds of alien vessels of various designs. Quite a sight, Lieutenant Flores said, standing beside her. More ships than Earth has ever built. And yet they're losing the war, Olivia replied quietly. Communications specialist Samantha Rivera's console beeped. Captain, we're being hailed by the station. They're sending docking instructions. Take us in, helm. As the Defiant approached its assigned docking port, the crew could see alien crews watching their ship through viewports. Some pointed, others clustered together in discussion. They're curious about us, said Engineer Daniel Powell, as he monitored the ship's systems. Can't blame them. We look nothing like their vessels. Once docked, Captain Pearson assembled her senior officers. Remember your briefings. Be respectful, but confident. We're here to help, not to be dismissed. When the airlock opened, they were greeted by a delegation of Alliance officers led by Commander Xylox, a tall, ridge-faced alien with 4 arms and glossy black eyes. This is the Earth contribution to our war effort, Xylox asked, looking past them at the Defiant. 1 vessel. Olivia stepped forward. Commander Xylox, I'm Captain Olivia Pearson. This is 1 vessel with capabilities your enemy has never encountered. Xylox made a sound that might have been a scoff. Captain, the Vordath outnumber us 3-1 with ships 10 times your size. Your confidence is admirable but misplaced. Dr. Wright bristled but remained silent as they followed Xylox through the station's corridors. Aliens of dozens of species moved through the hallways, many pausing to stare at the humans. The command center is this way, Xylox said. The fleet admirals wish to brief you on the defensive formation you'll take during the upcoming battle. Defensive formation? Lieutenant Flores asked. We'd like to discuss alternative strategies. Xylox stopped walking. Alternative strategies? We have fought the Vordath for centuries. Our battle plans are time-tested. And yet you're losing, Olivia said gently. Sometimes fresh eyes see what familiar ones miss. The command center was a vast chamber filled with holographic displays showing fleet movements and planetary systems. High-ranking officers from multiple species stood around a central table, examining battle plans. The human vessel has arrived, Xylox announced. This is their captain. The alien admirals looked up. One stepped forward. A being with translucent skin through which complex organs pulsed with light. I am Grand Admiral Zeth of the 3rd Fleet, it said. Your ambassador spoke highly of human military prowess, yet you bring 1 small ship. Olivia looked at the battle plans displayed on the table. May I? She asked, gesturing to the controls. Zeth nodded. She adjusted the display to show recent battles. Your formations are consistent. The Vordath can predict your movements. Consistency breeds efficiency, another admiral said. It also breeds predictability, Lieutenant Flores countered. The Vordath know exactly where you'll be and when. Samantha Rivera had been quietly observing the communication station nearby. Your ships communicate on synchronized frequencies, she noted. That's why they can jam you so effectively. The aliens exchanged glances. What do you propose? Zeth finally asked. Olivia brought up a new tactical display. We don't want a position in your defensive line. We want to operate independently, targeting their command structure. The room filled with the alien equivalent of laughter. 1 ship against their command vessels. Impossible. Their flagship is surrounded by hundreds of warships. Dr. Wright stepped forward. Our ship has certain Advantages. Such as, Zeth asked, stealth capabilities beyond your sensor technology and weapons that can disrupt Vordath shields. The aliens fell silent. Prove it, Xylox challenged. There's a combat simulation facility on this station, isn't there? Olivia asked. Zeth nodded slowly. Then let us show you what one human ship can do, Olivia said, meeting the alien's gaze steadily. As they followed Zeth to the simulation chamber, Engineer Powell leaned close to Dr. Wright. Are you sure the KDS will work against their actual ships? The simulations on Earth were based on limited data. It'll work, Dr. Wright said, but Olivia caught the slight hesitation in his voice. They would soon find out if humanity's gamble would pay off, or lead to a quick and embarrassing defeat. The simulation chamber was a large, empty room with glowing grid patterns on the walls, floor, and ceiling. When the door sealed behind them, the grid faded and was replaced by a perfect recreation of space, with stars and distant planets visible in all directions. Impressive, Dr. Wright said, looking around. Grand Admiral Zeth operated a floating control panel. This will simulate the most recent major battle with the Vordath. We lost 3 outposts and 27 ships. A holographic fleet of Alliance vessels appeared around them, facing an even larger Vordath armada. The simulated ships were detailed down to the weapon ports and communication arrays. Show us how your ships fought, Captain Pearson requested. Zeth activated the simulation. The Alliance fleet formed neat, symmetrical formations, each ship class taking specific positions. The Vordath approached in what appeared to be chaos, but clearly followed an organized pattern. Lieutenant Flores watched closely. Pause it, please. The simulation froze. Look at the Vordath formation, he said. It seems random, but they're protecting specific ships. He pointed to several larger vessels positioned behind the front lines. Those are their command ships, aren't they? Xylox nodded reluctantly. Yes. They coordinate all attacks. And they always stay in those relative positions. Olivia asked. Vordath hierarchy is strict, another alien commander explained. Lower-ranked ships protect higher ones. Olivia exchanged glances with her crew. Resume the simulation, please. The battle continued. The Alliance fought bravely but predictably. The Vordath responded by targeting weak points in the rigid formation. Within minutes, the simulation showed Alliance ships being destroyed while barely damaging the enemy. When it ended, the humans were silent for a moment. Now, Xylox said, show us how one human ship would fare better. Olivia nodded to Dr. Wright, who stepped forward. Add the U.S. Defiant to the simulation, but use these specifications. He handed Zeth a data device. The Admiral's eyes widened as he reviewed the information. These capabilities cannot be real. They are, Dr. Wright assured him. The simulation reset. This time, a small human ship, the Defiant, appeared at the edge of the battle. Begin, Olivia said. Instead of joining the Alliance formation, the simulated Defiant moved away, circling the battlefield at high speed. What is it doing? Xylox demanded. Gathering data, Lieutenant Flores explained, identifying patterns and weaknesses. The Defiant then disappeared from all sensors. Where did it go? Zeth asked, checking his controls. Stealth mode, Engineer Powell said with a hint of pride. Our ship becomes effectively invisible to both sides. In the simulation, the battle proceeded as before, with Alliance ships falling to Vordath attacks. Then suddenly, alarms blared as the Defiant reappeared, directly beside the main Vordath command ship. The simulated Defiant fired its weapons. Instead of typical energy beams, waves of distortion spread from the human ship. The Vordath command vessel's shields flickered and failed. Within seconds, other Vordath ships nearby suffered the same fate. Medical Officer Lisa Hayes, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. The QDS doesn't just disable shields, it disrupts their internal communication systems. The simulation showed Vordath ships firing on each other in confusion. The neat formation collapsed into chaos. Now, Olivia said, your fleet would attack here, here, and here. She pointed to 3 key positions. Zeth made the adjustments. The simulated Alliance ships broke their formation and struck the vulnerable Vordath vessels. The tide of battle shifted dramatically. When the simulation ended, the Alliance had won with minimal losses. Silence filled the chamber. That's impossible, Xylox finally said. No single ship could cause such disruption. Not with conventional weapons, Dr. Wright agreed. But the QDS isn't conventional. Grand Admiral Zeth studied the humans with new interest. You said you wanted to operate independently. What exactly is your plan? Olivia stepped forward. The Vordath fleet protecting the Nexus colony is their largest concentration of forces. Our intelligence suggests their Supreme Commander is personally leading this assault. You want to attack their Supreme Commander? Zeth asked, disbelief in his voice. We want to end this war, Olivia corrected, not just win a battle. The alien commanders looked at each other, communicating silently. If, Zeth said carefully, we were to allow this plan, what would you need from us? A small diversion to draw attention while we move into position, Lieutenant Flores said. And trust. Trust is earned, Xylox replied. Olivia nodded. Then let us earn it. The vast emptiness of space outside the Nexus colony was suddenly filled with ships. More than 300 Vordath warships appeared in perfect formation. Their dark hulls absorbed the light from the nearby sun, making them look like moving shadows against the stars. Vordath fleet has arrived. Communications Specialist River reported on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, counting 312 warships. Their energy signatures are stronger than our intelligence suggested. Captain Pearson nodded, her face calm despite the overwhelming odds. Where are they positioning their command vessels? Lieutenant Flores studied the tactical display. Central rear quadrant, surrounded by their heaviest battleships. Classic protective formation. On the main Alliance flagship, Grand Admiral Zeth was organizing the defense. The Alliance had mustered 120 ships, all they could gather on short notice. The glowing holographic displays showed the massive disadvantage they faced. The human vessel is not taking its position, Commander Xylox noted, pointing to where the Defiant was holding back from the main formation. They are following their own plan, Zeth replied. We will proceed with ours. The Alliance ships formed their traditional defensive pattern. Smaller, faster ships at the front, with larger vessels arranged in tiered formations behind them. The Vordath began their advance. Their frontline ships fired the first salvos, brilliant beams of energy streaking across space. Several Alliance vessels took direct hits, their shields flaring blue under the assault. On the Defiant, Engineer Powell monitored the ship's systems. QDS is charged and ready, but will only get one good use before it needs to cool down. We need to get closer, Dr. Wright said, making adjustments to the weapon controls. The effect diminishes with distance. Captain Pearson watched the battle unfold on her screens. The Alliance was fighting bravely, but their formations were breaking under the superior Vordath numbers. Several Alliance ships were already drifting, disabled, or destroyed. They won't last long, Lieutenant Flores observed grimly. Then we don't wait any longer, Olivia decided. Activate stealth systems. The Defiant's hull shimmered as special materials and energy fields bent light and other radiation around the ship, rendering it effectively invisible to sensors and the naked eye. Stealth systems engage, Rivera confirmed. We're off their scopes. Take us in, Captain Pearson ordered. Full impulse power. Direct course to the Vordath command ship. The invisible Defiant accelerated, weaving through the battle. Energy beams and explosions filled space around them, but none targeted the human vessel. They passed within meters of massive Vordath destroyers without being detected. On the Vordath command ship, Supreme Commander Graf stood tall, his scaled skin gleaming under the bridge lights. Multiple arms operated control interfaces as he directed the battle. The Alliance defense is crumbling, one of his officers reported. Estimated time to complete victory, 3 hours. Graf made a sound of satisfaction. Too long. Bring the disruptor cannons online. I want this finished in 1 hour. None of the Vordath noticed the slight distortion in space near their vessel as the Defiant moved into position directly beneath their main hull. We're in optimal range, Lieutenant Flores reported. All Vordath sensors are focused on the main battle. Captain Pearson took a deep breath. Dr. Wright, prepare to fire the QDS on my mark. QDS ready, the scientist confirmed. Once we fire, our stealth field will collapse. We'll be visible to everyone. Everyone will have more important things to worry about, Olivia replied. She opened a secure channel to the Alliance flagship. Admiral Zeth, we are in position. Prepare your ships to break formation on my signal. The Admiral's voice came through with static. Acknowledged, Captain Pearson. Though I fear there won't be many ships left to follow your signal. Trust me, Admiral. You'll know when to move. She closed the channel and looked at her crew. Each face showed determination despite the impossible odds they faced. The next 5 hours will determine the fate of this war, she told them. Let's make them count. She turned to Dr. Wright. Fire the QDS. Dr. Wright pressed the activation sequence. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, space itself appeared to ripple outward from the Defiant in expanding waves of distortion. The Vordath command ship's lights flickered. Its powerful shields shimmered and disappeared. Supreme Commander Graf looked up in confusion as alarms blared across his bridge. What is happening? His question was answered when the U.S. Defiant suddenly appeared on their sensors. Directly beneath them, chaos erupted on the Vordath command ship. Warning lights flashed as systems failed throughout the massive vessel. Supreme Commander Graf gripped his control panel with 2 of his forearms. Target that ship, he roared, pointing at the newly visible Defiant. All available weapons. But the weapons officers stared at their dead consoles in confusion. Nothing responded. On the Defiant, the bridge shook as the QDS reached full power. Blue-white energy coursed across the hull of the human vessel. QDS at maximum output, Dr. Wright reported, his voice strained. The effect is spreading to nearby Vordath ships. Lieutenant Flores watched his tactical display with growing excitement. Their shields are dropping across the entire command section of their fleet. They can't communicate with each other. Captain Pearson opened a channel to all Alliance ships. Alliance fleet, this is Captain Pearson. The Vordath command vessels are vulnerable. Attack pattern Omega. I repeat, attack pattern Omega. Grand Admiral Zeth hesitated only for a moment before giving the order. All ships, break formation. Target the Vordath command vessels. The Alliance ships, which had been fighting defensively, suddenly shifted tactics. They split into smaller groups and darted through gaps in the Vordath lines, racing toward the now vulnerable command ships. Engineer Powell fought to keep the Defiant's systems stable as the QDS strained their power core. Captain, we can't maintain this output much longer. The system is overheating. Hold it together, Powell. Olivia urged. We just need a few more minutes. The first Vordath ship exploded as Alliance weapons found their mark. Without shields, the previously untouchable command vessels were suddenly defenseless. More explosions followed as other ships were hit. Supreme Commander Graf watched in horror as his carefully organized fleet fell into disarray. Without central coordination, Vordath captains began acting independently, some firing blindly, others attempting to retreat. Several ships collided in the confusion. What is happening? Graf demanded. How is one small ship doing this? His tactical officer stared at readings in disbelief. The human vessel is generating some kind of space-time distortion. It's affecting our quantum communication nodes. Destroy it, Graf ordered. 3 Vordath destroyers broke off to attack the Defiant directly. They fired conventional weapons that the QDS couldn't affect. Incoming fire, Lieutenant Flores warned. Evasive maneuvers. The Defiant rolled and dove, narrowly avoiding the first volley of enemy fire. But with the QDS drawing so much power, their shields were weakened. A glancing hit rocked the human ship. Sparks flew from a console, and Medical Officer Lisa Hayes rushed to treat a wounded crew member. Shields down to 43%, Rivera reported. Captain Pearson remained focused. Continue broadcasting the disruption frequencies. We need to maintain the effect for as long as possible. Communications Specialist Rivera nodded, her fingers dancing across her console. Broadcasting on all Vordath command frequencies. Their entire communication network is breaking down. On his flagship, Grand Admiral Zeth watched with astonishment as the previously invincible Vordath fleet descended into chaos. The humans were right, he told Commander Xylox. The Vordath rely entirely on their strict hierarchy. Without it, they don't know how to fight. On the Defiant, Engineer Powell shouted over the noise of straining systems. Captain, the QDS is reaching critical temperature. We need to shut it down, or we'll lose the whole system. Dr. Wright looked at his readings with concern. She's right, Captain. We've done all we can with it. Captain Pearson nodded. Shut it down. Switch all power to weapons and shields. She opened a channel to the Alliance flagship. Admiral Zeth, the QDS effect will fade soon, but you have maybe 3 hours before they can reorganize. Make them count. Understood, Captain, Zeth replied. We will not waste this opportunity. The QDS powered down, its blue glow fading from the Defiance hull. But the damage was done. Throughout the Vordath fleet, ships fired on each other, commanders argued over competing orders, and formation discipline completely collapsed. Supreme Commander Graff stared at the tactical display in disbelief as his mighty armada tore itself apart. Impossible, he whispered. How could one species, one ship, do this to us? Lieutenant Flores allowed himself a small smile as he watched the Alliance ships pressing their advantage. They wanted a war, he said quietly. We're giving them an ending instead. The first hour of the battle passed with astonishing speed. What had begun as a certain Vordath victory transformed into something unprecedented in the centuries-long war. Alliance ships moved with new purpose, targeting the vulnerable Vordath command vessels and communication relays. Captain Pearson monitored the situation from the Defiant, which now moved quickly between Alliance squadrons, providing tactical guidance. Though the QDS had been powered down to prevent permanent damage to the ship, its effects still rippled through the Vordath fleet. First hour status report, Lieutenant Flores announced. 27 Vordath command ships disabled or destroyed. Their fleet cohesion is at approximately 30%. The Alliance has lost only 4 more ships since we activated the QDS, Samantha Rivera added. Olivia nodded. And Supreme Commander Graff. Still on his flagship, but they're surrounded by their own defensive ships. They can't maneuver effectively. As they entered the second hour, the Vordath attempted to regroup. Several ships formed protective clusters, trying to re-establish communication through visual signals and light pulses. They were learning to adapt. They're smarter than the Alliance gave them credit for, Dr. Wright observed. They're finding workarounds for the communication disruption. Olivia studied the tactical display. Engineer Powell, can we get another brief QDS pulse? Just enough to disrupt their new communications. Powell wiped sweat from her forehead. I can give you 15 seconds at half power. Any more will fry the entire system. That's all we need. Target those clusters of ships trying to coordinate. The Defiant moved into position and activated the QDS again. The brief pulse sent another wave of disruption through the regrouping Vordath vessels. Ships that had been carefully aligning themselves suddenly drifted apart, their coordination broken once more. In the third hour, Vordath reinforcements arrived. 50 more warships jumping into the battle. Under normal circumstances, this would have sealed the Alliance's fate. But they arrived to find confusion instead of an organized battle line. The newcomers are trying to figure out what's happening, Lieutenant Flores reported. They're holding position at the edge of the battle. Captain Pearson opened a channel to Admiral Zeth. Admiral, The reinforcements are vulnerable. They don't understand the situation yet. Understood, Captain, Zeth replied. His voice carried something new. Respect. I'm diverting 3 squadrons to intercept. The Alliance ships that had been conserving their energy during the first part of the battle now moved with startling speed toward the Vordath reinforcements. Caught unprepared and receiving conflicting orders from the main fleet, the new arrivals found themselves under attack before they could properly deploy. By the 4th hour, the tide had fully turned. Vordath ships began to retreat, breaking away from the battle in small groups. But the Alliance, for the first time in decades, pursued them aggressively. They're running, Rivera said, almost in disbelief. And the Alliance isn't letting them go, Olivia noted. They've learned something today. On his increasingly isolated flagship, Supreme Commander Grath faced a decision he had never imagined possible. His bridge was damaged, many of his officers dead or injured. The ship shuddered as another Alliance attack struck home. Commander, his remaining tactical officer said, we must withdraw. The battle is lost. We must preserve the knowledge of this human weapon. Grath's pride warred with his duty to the Empire. Finally, he gave the order. Prepare for emergency jump. Send the retreat signal to all ships. But only a fraction of his once mighty fleet received the order. The rest continued fighting in isolation, or had already fled, or were destroyed. As the 5th hour of battle began, Captain Pearson stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching as the Vordath flagship prepared to flee. Should we pursue? Lieutenant Flores asked. Olivia considered this. No. Let him go. Let him tell the Empire what happened here today. Engineer Powell looked up from her station. What exactly did happen here, Captain? Olivia gazed at the tactical display, showing the remnants of the Vordath fleet in full retreat, with Alliance ships in pursuit. The beginning of the end, she said quietly. In 5 hours, we've changed a war that's lasted for centuries. Medical Officer Hayes nodded. Because we fought to end it, not to keep fighting. A concept, Olivia said, that the rest of the galaxy is about to understand very well. 2 weeks after the battle, Captain Olivia Pearson stood before the United Galactic Council. The vast chamber was filled with representatives from over 60 species, including many who had never taken sides in the Long War. Now they all wanted to hear about humanity. Beside her stood President Carter, who had traveled from Earth once news of the victory spread. Admiral Zeth and Commander Xylox sat nearby, their earlier skepticism replaced by genuine respect. The battle at Nexus Colony was more than a military victory, President Carter told the assembled representatives. It was proof that this war can end. A tall, insect-like being rose from the council seats. We have received reports that the Vordath Empire has requested peace talks for the first time in 3 centuries. Is this because of your weapon? Captain Pearson stepped forward. Not because of our weapon alone. The quantum displacement system was only a tool. It was our approach that made the difference. Explain, the being requested. For centuries, this war has been fought to maintain positions and slowly gain territory, Olivia said. Both sides developed strategies to continue fighting, not to win decisively. Dr. Wright, seated with the rest of the Defiant crew, nodded in agreement. Humans approach conflict differently, Olivia continued. We don't glorify war. We see it as a terrible necessity that should be ended as quickly as possible. President Carter added, throughout human history, our most successful military leaders were those who sought to end conflicts decisively rather than prolong them. We brought this perspective to your war. The council chamber filled with murmurs as translation devices relayed their words to each species. Admiral Zeth rose to speak. I was skeptical when one small human ship arrived at my outpost. I believed it was an insult. Now I understand it was a gift. He turned to face Olivia. Captain Pearson and her crew showed us what we have forgotten after centuries of stalemate, that wars are meant to be won, not merely fought. An elderly Vordath representative, part of a hastily assembled peace delegation, spoke next. Supreme Commander Grath has been removed from his position. Our empire has ruled through military might for too long. We request formal peace negotiations. President Carter nodded solemnly. Earth will help facilitate these talks. Later, as the Defiant crew prepared to return to Earth, they gathered one last time on the observation deck of the Celestial Alliance headquarters. Through the massive windows, they could see ships from both former enemy factions moving peacefully through space together. It's hard to believe, Lieutenant Flores said. 1 battle, 5 hours, and centuries of war coming to an end. Medical Officer Hayes smiled. Not just the battle. It was the idea behind it. We showed them a different way to think about conflict. Engineer Powell laughed softly. And to think they were disappointed when we showed up with just one ship. Sometimes, Olivia said, all you need is the right approach, not the biggest fleet. Ambassador Zorax entered the observation deck and approached Captain Pearson. Your ship will be leaving soon. I wanted to thank you personally. We were happy to help, Olivia replied. There is something else, Zorax said. The Council has asked me to discuss humanity's future role in galactic affairs. Many species are concerned about your military capabilities. Concerned? Dr. Wright asked. Some fear what humanity might do with its power. You ended a centuries-long war in hours. It is unsettling to many. Olivia looked out at the stars. Tell them they have nothing to fear from Earth as long as peace prevails. We didn't develop the QDS because we love war. We developed it because we hate it enough to end it quickly. Zorax seemed to consider this. An interesting perspective. One that many in the galaxy will need time to understand. As the ambassador left, Samantha Rivera joined her captain at the window. Do you think they'll ever truly understand us? Olivia watched as a Vordath and an Alliance ship passed each other without hostility for the first time in generations. They're learning, she said. And so are we. The crew of the Defiant stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars and ships beyond the window. They had changed the galaxy in ways that would unfold for centuries to come, all because humanity had joined a war not to fight, but to end it.